Tim,
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction.
How did you blow it?
Well, I blew it in one way, the way everybody else did. In the general election, I trusted the polls. In general, the aggregate of the polls, you average them out, you look at them closely, and you're going to be right. I was right in 2014 about the Republicans taking over the Senate. I was right in 2012, 2008. Going back, working for Bob Novak in the 2002 elections, we did well this way. It didn't happen. The polls were wrong, and they were all wrong sort of across the threshold. So that's sort of the regular way I was wrong. I think there's another way that I particularly deserve, you know, the mockery of the masses, which is that since 2002, I've been saying populists were going to take over the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And then when that populist came to take over the Republican Party, I said, oh, no, I don't think this is the guy who's going to do it. So there is, I think, where I, more than most, was wrong.
Well, it's interesting because you talk a lot about projections. And I think it was people's own personal feelings, whether it's about politics or Donald Trump, that colored the outcome of their analysis or polling. And in 2009, in your book, Obamonomics, you wrote about the rising of populism in conservative and Republican streams, but you thought that that would be tethered to an ideology. And
I called it libertarian populism, free market populism, and I said the populism is going to be railing against corporate welfare, railing against crony capitalism, pushing for limited government, getting the power out of Washington. But that's not, the regular person out there isn't an ideologue. They're not sort of a libertarian like you or me or conservative like me. There are people out there who kind of know what they like, what they don't like, who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. That's who Donald Trump was. And he was that regular guy who happened to be a billionaire living in a gold mansion on top of a tower in New York City.
Yeah, and I think people on both sides were guilty of that exact same thing, having very strong feelings either way and not really listening to the people who would cast the deciding votes, especially in the Midwest. Do you think people will ever trust polls again?
No, not for a long time. And what I always told people about polls going into this is, oh, well, sometimes if you have one poll, it's wrong, or a poll might be wrong by a couple of points. Here, the magnitude of the error from the polls wasn't so huge, but in every state, it was in the same direction, and it was enough to cross the threshold from a Hillary win to a Trump win. So unless polling changes somehow, reforms itself, it'll be impossible to get anybody to trust it. I don't know if I'll trust them. Hopefully I'll be a lot more skeptical than I was this year.
Well, skepticism is great, but now we all have trust issues.